What's up? Evening out, soaring in. Happy Native American Heritage Month. With that being said, let's go into the awful effects of pollution on native reservations. You know the land the government let us have? I'm sure you've heard of the Willow Project, where sacred spiritual land is being drilled into for oil. Yeah, it gets a lot worse from there. In fact, reservations have been exposed to radiation, oil spills, and manure runoff. Disclaimer! I do not speak for all native people. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions. Mine are just heavily biased. This week's topic is about pollution. Shocker. It's something that affects everyone, whether directly or indirectly. Pollution in indigenous communities, however, tend to affect people directly, though. Let's go back to the 1900s, where uranium mining came into nuclear fashion. Uranium mining started earlier then, but ramped up around World War II for obvious reasons. Since then, it's been used for energy as well as nuclear weapons. Isn't using material better than letting it sit? That material can be used to sustain energy for entire cities. We use radiation to look for broken bones and medical solutions. In both cases, workers involved have to wear lead and other protective gear. Even then, prolonged exposure can cause higher risks for cancers and even target certain organs. Imagine the effects on people who aren't wearing any protection and consuming that radiation. That's right, indigenous people. Not only was the radiation poisoning the water, soil, and people due to uranium mines near native land, but also because of nuclear testing sites in New Mexico. And the people living in these reservations had no idea. Put yourself in their positions. The government tells you where only your tribe can settle. This land was spiritual to your tribe. This was the land your ancestors helped to take care of. The United States government knows the risks and leases that land to create nuclear weapons. Well, that happened to the Navajo, or Diné. Not only that, they leased that land, they employed Diné workers, with their families living close by. Which means not only were adults signed up for the potential risks, which were not made known to them, even though the government definitely knew, their families didn't. So many families were drinking the contaminated water near those mines, eating food from the soil near those mines, living near those mines. The radiation still pollutes water in those areas to this day. Whatever they were paid to live there was never enough. DNA miners were seen as expendable. They weren't even given the proper protection to go into those mines. I haven't even touched on the nuclear testing sites. The Yakama Nation had ancestral lands that they were told they could still use. They were never consulted on how millions of gallons of radioactive waste was stored. Those barrels, just full of radioactive waste, were buried under the Hanford site. The negligence to spiritually significant land is disgusting. These barrels have been there since 1989. There is bound to be some bad news when they get unburied. There was so much information on radiation poisoning in reservations, it's overwhelming. I'm getting a headache from it all. To anyone who says environmental genocide is an over-exaggeration, that's only 1/3 of the pollution argument. Oil spills are in so many reservations, and look on this map. If you see this big collection of spills over near Oklahoma, yeah, one of the biggest areas of native allocated land, and it's completely polluted by oil. That's no fucking joke, especially when there have been oil spills from Hawaii to Alaska. That's only talking about American oil lines. What about the Canadian ones, who almost were able to put more oil lines across indigenous territories, From the article, Keystone X Pipeline, Rosebud Sioux Tribe v. Trump, of course TransCanada claims that KXL will be safe, that it will be state-of-the-art. Frighteningly, the KXL pipeline design would only detect 13,000 barrels, 535,000 gallons, of tar sands crude leaked in a 24-hour period. The most recent leak, large enough to partially fill a swimming pool, was not big enough to trigger the leak detection system. That quote was pulled directly from the section named November 2019, Take Action on the KXL Pipeline. The Trump administration was caught illegally making deals and tried to override native treaties with the American government. Tried and failed, you rotten orange ass lick. We're cutting you off there, Owl. Back to you, Owl. Thanks, Owl. So, they got sued in the Rosebud Sioux Tribe versus Trump court case. The Rosebud Sioux Tribe won. They prevented oil pipelines, which was already evident they could and would leak, from being put down across multiple states over various reservations. Once again, the American government made illegal deals, ones that would have had devastating effects on allocated native land, native water, and native people. They even have ways in America to get around it, like with DAPL. A pipeline that crosses 4 states is just what we need. More oil spills, more carbon in the air, more burning. Time and time again, new pipelines are built, oil is spilled, then water and resources are polluted by it. Water scarcity is a big problem in too many reservations. There doesn't need to be oil pipelines going through sacred and clean land when most of America is apparently free fucking rain. Manifest destiny is a bitch, isn't it? I don't want to sound like a fearmonger, but this is what reality is. Isn't it odd that a lot of technological advancements end up harming indigenous people in some way? Weird, huh? The only times we've been saved is because of native voices. I am not an activist. Most of this information was quite easy to find. All I've done is formed opinions with sources that aren't typically taught in school. Then I added my own twist. The information has to be searched for, but it can be done. Back to pollution. Oil can be known for poisoning almost anything it touches. It can harm some plants. Others actually thrive in oil-polluted environments, but not the majority. If the leaves are coated in oil, then it can be harder for the plant to complete photosynthesis, which, if you need a reminder, is converting sunlight into a type of sugar for the plant to use as food. But if it gets into the soil, it can suffocate the plants. And while the plants can eventually recover, it takes time. People don't have that if they're starving because their crops are polluted. Especially if the oil contaminates drinking water or even rivers that carry a very important food source, fish. Not all of the ducky soap in the world could clean up those consequences. Speaking of polluted water, remember when I mentioned manure polluting water in the first video of the series? You don't? You didn't watch it? That's fair, here's a refresher. Putting chemicals in the soil to make plants grow and bugs go away pollutes the water that runs off into streams and rivers, which means polluted drinking water and a food source. Chemicals and cow shit. Refreshing. Yes, I know, everything made up of periodic elements can be considered a chemical. It's for dramatic effect. Keep up. But there seems to be a pattern. Poison the water, poison the food, poison the people. Manure and pesticides may help crops grow and keep invasive species from eating the crops respectively, but it can also end up causing the delicate ecosystem to be slapped out of whack. Manure-polluted runoff can cause the growth of aquatic microorganisms which deplete the amount of oxygen for fish, not to mention the harmful chemicals from pesticides. Why do the fish have to suffer? All I want to do is glub glub, eat, have babies, and die. How can they glub glub without oxygen? How can they eat with poisoned bugs? What would the caviar think? I know, I'm making light of the fish that have died horribly. Fish is a very great source of protein, minerals, and fertilizer. Fish are still being killed. People are just taking a lot of extra steps to do it now. The least we could do is respect them and not let their carcasses pollute the river with decomposing matter, which can cause ammonia spikes in the water. People may think they're just fish. Well, those fish have the will to survive. They shouldn't need to suffocate. They shouldn't need to be poisoned with ammonia. They shouldn't be living in our pollution. I know, I've talked mostly about fish when it comes to animals and pollution, but all animals get affected, including humans. Diseases spread, especially in fecal matter. We don't have to just worry about fecal diseases, excess ammonia in the water, and ecosystems being out of balance. We also have to worry about nitrate poisoning. This isn't to shame farmers. If you're a farmer out there who uses fertilizers, don't know why you're watching me, Please do your research and try to find ones that have a low impact on the ecosystem. Every creature on this earth should have their best chance at life. Pollution is no joke, yet I'm joking about it. If you don't laugh, you cry, and while crying is perfectly acceptable, no one will want to listen while snot is dripping down my face. Pollution is a big bag of dicks. It is mostly created by big governments and huge corporations who know the risks. But profit over people, up top. They test how much indigenous people will take, try to poison us, the land, and the chances of our long-term survival. Environmental genocide is just their quiet way to get rid of native people. Silence encourages this. People will never know if they don't know what to look for. But that's what the internet's for. Once again, this script with clickable cited works is linked in a doc below. Thank you so much for reaching the end of this video. Thanks for stopping by. You feathers help me fly.